Hey guys, I want to do a video showing off how Versamagic inks work on thinner papered books, journals, planners, stuff like that. I have seen a couple of videos on the Versamagic inks, chalk inks, but none of them really went into depth on it actually being used on journal paper or planner paper, which is what I got them for, is because I wanted to use them in my planners so they wouldn't bleed through, and I could use them in my Faux-Bonichi and it wouldn't bleed through those pages either. There's lots of chalk markers, chalk inks on the market. I don't have any of the other ones to compare them to. There's Prima, there's Colorbach, and I'm sure other ones, but I liked these. They appealed to my price point because I picked up all of these either on Amazon or on at Joann's with a coupon for 50% off. So it was basically on average a little over $1 a teardrop, if you will, with the coupons and sales and stuff. I have all of the sets except for two. There is a complete blue set that I don't have, and another, I believe, mauve type color set that I don't have. But the colors that are in those sets are very similar to the ones that I already have. And I can't find them locally with a coupon, and I found them on Amazon, but they're like $15 a set, and I don't want them that badly. So this will do me for now. Because I have to have them all. I don't know why. But Versamagic chalk inks, they come in the regular size rectangle pads, and they also come in these teardrops. This was the other thing that I really liked about them, was they came in these little small pads. I'm not really into stamping and that kind of stuff. I want to be, but it's just, I have a love-hate relationship with it, and so yeah. But I have, in my Lotus Paper Planner, I have these little check boxes that I bought you've seen, let me grab it here, you've seen it in my videos before, the Marianne Smith Designs, her little planner icons. They fit perfectly in these little check boxes that I have, so that sent me on the hunt for finding stamp ink that would work with it. I used three different inks to do my testing and stuff because I wanted to do a kind of a comparison to VersaFine. This is my ultimate favorite ink. If you can't stamp, this will make it look like you can. Plus it's waterproof when it dries. That makes it my favorite. But I do find, not so much on the black, but my ink pad is getting older, that on the colored VersaFines, they do on some of my papers tend to bleed or shadow really heavily. And so I was trying to find an alternative to them. Plus, I don't think there's a huge color range of these, especially in the little ones. I'm not positive on that though. So, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That's okay. But I did use, I used the Midnight Black for my samples, the Versamagic chalk ink. It is a multi-surface ink. And then I used, to compare it to, the VersaFine Black Onyx. I also used a colored Deep Lagoon of VersaFine, so you could see that the colored ones actually bleed a little bit worse with these. But the main thing is to show the Versamagic. These are the colors that I have. They come in sets of 4. They're in little, grab one here. They come in these little packages, if you will, and they come in sets. And I didn't keep them in these for storage reasons. Plus, they don't actually say on most of these what the names are, so not helpful. So I stamped them out using a stamp from the Marianne Smith Designs planner stamp set, and I am not a stamper, and these actually did really well considering oh my gosh, I should invest in the MISTI tool just to put it in my planner, because I just can't get a clear impression no matter what I do. I have the wiggles. So seeing that they came out with one shot this opaque and this well stamped, I was really happy with it. I won't go over all the colors and stuff. I'll put them down below, or you can just look them up. But if you have questions about the colors or anything, let me know. But as you can tell, there's a pretty good range of colors. I do find though that some of the colors are, you know, pretty, even though this is more of a purple and this is more of a brown, they do tend to be very similar to each other. There's lots of greens, but like these two greens here, this one is Hint of Pesto and this one's Spanish Olive. The only difference in those two that I could find was that one's a little darker than the other one, but other than that, they're almost the same. You definitely wouldn't need all the colors. I mostly wanted a red for my YouTube stuff. I wanted a blue for my Facebook stuff. I wanted a yellow for sunshine. I wanted a more of a grayish color for miscellaneous things, and I wanted a black. And this happened. So, anyways, let's get to how these work. So this is how I've got them right now. I'm very bad if I put them in a drawer. I won't remember I have them, so they just kind of sit out on my desk. I stamped all of these on my Lotus Paper Planner paper. You've seen videos and heard me talk about them if you're on that planner, if you're on my Facebook, but I'll link it down below also. Because this is the main planner I use. This is the main planner I will always use. No matter what other planners I buy. I adore my Lotus Paper Planner. And so I wanted to see first and foremost how it would work on that. So I stamped all my samples on a piece of paper from that planner. And it's stamped beautifully. There is white here. You can't see it, but it's there. And I just wanted to show that there was absolutely no bleed through. There is shadow on the darker colors. Depending on how you hold it up to the light, you can kind of see it that way. But if you lay it flat, which most of us do, it's completely gone. Ignore that. This is a tester piece that she sent me. I didn't want to use up my good stuff. Right here is where the black was stamped, and as you can tell, there's very little, there's no bleeding and just a little itty bitty tiny bit of shadowing, and of course it was a very solid stamp, so that would happen on most papers. So that is the color range that I have. So I wanted to try it on a whole bunch of different papers, and again the comparison I used was the VersaFine ink. So let me move all this stuff out of the way. The papers that I had to compare it to were, I have a personal planner, and so I wanted to use it on that. And this is the Versamagic chalk ink. This is the VersaFine, and then here's the colored blue VersaFine. And so all of them stamped really well. I liked how dark the chalk ink was, but in fairness, my VersaFine ink pad is like 8 years old, so it's finally running its course. This is the Versamagic one, and I thought it stamped absolutely beautiful. It nice and popped off the page, and it does dry completely. You know, you can't rub it off or anything like that, like you would think a chalk would be. It's not like that. On the back, none of them bled. Well, let me rephrase. The two blacks did not bleed at all, but my blue one, I find the colored VersaFine inks do tend to bleed worse than the black, no matter what. I do have a new VersaFine pad that I've tried it with, but I have given that to a friend, so I didn't have it to play with. But you can kind of see right in here that it bled through a little bit right there. But the VersaFine and the Versamagic did not bleed at all, and the VersaFine shadowed more than the Versamagic did. So I'll lay it down so you can see the shadowing. Nothing that would make you not use it. And so that was on the personal planner paper, and so that's that example. I picked up a Happy Planner because I don't know, it was on a coupon and I had to have it. Don't ask. How do we say no to these things? We don't. That's why we own all of this. Anyways, back to business. The Versamagic is here, VersaFine is here, and of course the colored VersaFine there. And as you can see, they all stamped really well. The chalk ink is just a little bit blacker and more. But on the back, the one thing that I noticed about the Happy Planner is that the VersaFine did shadow. The Versamagic did not shadow hardly at all. You can't hardly see it at all. And again, the black is going to be more intense. And so once you put stuff here, you wouldn't even notice it. But it is right here is the Versamagic chalk ink. Here's the VersaFine, both the VersaFines, and they do shadow through a bit. That's how that worked on the Happy Planner. Again, this is the Lotus Paper Planner. You kind of got an idea of how it works there. I wanted to do some different examples on that one. And let me actually come back to that one. The other thing that I use is I use a Moleskine for my Fauxbonichi journal, which if you've watched me at all, you know this. It is my favorite journal to use. It takes a beating and comes back for more. I cannot recommend that any of the Moleskine line higher than anything when you're doing a faux Benici, especially if you like to watercolor and if you like to add in stickers and tip-ins and stuff like that. It will hold up to a lot of stuff. I highly recommend the Moleskine. But of course, let's see how it worked. So the top one is the Versamagic, then the VersaFine, and of course the blue VersaFine. And as you can see, you can't use VersaFine in your Moleskine journals. I mean, if you don't mind that, I skip pages, so I would use it and not care because I watercolor with it. But if you're just stamping like your date stamps or whatever, as you can tell, the VersaFine, poof, right through. The Versamagic did not at all bleed through. Well, this one sort of bled through. This one didn't bleed through, but it barely even shadows. But as you can tell, on the thinner papers, both of them are going to show up, at least in the black for sure. But if I was going to use stamping in my Moleskine and not watercolor with it, I would definitely stick with the Versamagic chalk inks. But that's how it worked on the Moleskine paper. Love those. And the other example that I have that we use in the Faux Benici group a lot is the Miguel Ruiz. It's kind of what people are calling the true Faux Benici. Because it's the most similar to the regular Hobonichi, only because it's got grid paper in it. So you can get grid paper in Moleskine. But anyways, I wanted to try it in here because I know a lot of people are using the Miguel Ruiz for their Faux Benici. Again, the Versamagic on top, VersaFine and VersaFine. And pretty much the same issues as the Moleskine. Slight shadowing on the Versamagic and deep shadowing on the VersaFine and slight bleed through with the colored VersaFine. And so if you're just stamping stuff, I would highly recommend the chalk inks, because I think you're going to probably run into that with any branded chalk ink, that it's going to work better. It's going to float on your page to dry. They do take a while to dry. They are not quick drying. I have a heat gun. I use my heat gun with them because I'm impatient. So yeah. But I find that once they're dry, nothing moves them really. And to show that, I tested it out on the Lotus Paper Company planner paper. Wow, that's a mouthful. VersaFine, Versamagic, and on the back you can see the VersaFine color slightly bled through in areas. I find that the colored ones just bleed, depending on the color, of course, I'm sure, but yeah. The VersaFine black shadows more. The chalk ink barely can see it at all through it. But I also wanted to try it with different mediums of coloring, because we like to color. So how did it hold up? Now, I will say flat out that the chalk ink is not waterproof. No. But you can make it work. I do not have any alcohol markers. I guess I could have used it with a Bic Market and stuff like that. So I'll leave that up to somebody else to try. But I did it with what we use most in our journals and our planners. And so I thought that would give us the best test of it. I did the first one with the Crayola pencils. I got impatient and I didn't heat set this. Well, you don't have to heat set it. You just have to let it really, really dry. I got impatient with this one, and right after I stamped it, tried to color it, it did rub. I let it dry without the heat gun for a good 10 minutes or so. Didn't have a single problem after that. So just give it a chance to dry and it'll be just fine. But it blended really well with the colored pencils. I would not use Gamasol with it. I'm sure that that will just float everything off the page. But for just coloring with regular colored pencils, it worked beautifully. I pulled out my distress markers. I cannot tell you how much I dislike those markers. I know, I'm like one of the only people that doesn't, but they are so hit and miss. Some of them work, some of them don't. Doesn't matter how you store them. I'm not spending any more money on them, which is really pathetic considering I have almost all of them. Small rant there. Anyways, I dug them out because I know a lot of people are using watercolor markers right now. I don't have any of those either because I don't do that in the stuff that I do, so I'm not investing in those right now. So I pulled out my distress markers. I did not add water to these. I just used them straight pen to paper, and they also did not pull any color. I used the mustard seed on the bottom, hoping that I could, maybe get it to move. No, I didn't have any issues with any of it moving. I also did not spend a lot of time working the color, trying to blend or anything like that. So I'm assuming the wetter you get the paper, the more issues that you're going to have. But for markers, it seems to work just fine. The last thing I did was I tried the Inktense. I love my Inktense because I wanted to try to watercolor with it. So I added just a hair of color at the base of each one of the sections, and then took a paintbrush. And if you guys, I'm sure you all watch Sandy Allnick's videos. I'm like a stalker. She put on her video, this side rant, but I have to, not rant, side note. She put on her video these silver black velvet round brushes, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is so expensive. I'm not spending that kind of money on a brush. Okay, so I broke down and I bought one. Best brush ever. I liked it so much, I invested and went back and bought 3 more, and I have 2 more on my Christmas list. I'm telling you, if you struggle with watercolor at all, the brush does make the person. These are awesome. I have an entire shelf over here of different kinds of watercolor brushes that I have picked up at Michael's and Joann's using a coupon, They work. They work just fine, and you can make them work. But these, I don't know how to explain it. They are just heavenly. I'll put the link down below to them. They are not inexpensive. You can pick them up at Dick Blick's. I don't know if you can pick them up at AC Moore. If you can pick them up locally with a coupon, oh my gosh, please do. Because they're not expensive, like thousands of dollars, but on average $10, $15, maybe a little bit more for the larger one. But it was worth every penny, and I want more. And I'm not a painter, but it gets into all the little tiny lines, and it floods your paper like, oh, buy them. Okay, side chats. Anyways, using my Inktense pencils and that brush and some water, I watercolored this butterfly. It also did not move it at all. I did not spend a tremendous amount of time blending colors. It did not flood the paper with water. This is planner paper. You can't do that anyways. So for small things, as long as you let it dry, I'm going to say that like 65,000 times, let it dry completely. The chalk ink you can watercolor, use markers and pencils with. If you have questions on other mediums, let me know. I can dig out my Sharpie markers and see how it does with an alcohol-based marker, if you want. But all in all, it seemed to hold up with everything that I probably will ever do with them in my planner or in my journals, my Fauxbonichis. And so I highly recommend them. Let me show you what the back looks. Again, this is planner paper. This is not art paper, so the distress markers, of course, bled through just a little bit as I got in a heavy spot, and the watercolors, it's watercolors on regular paper. That's what they do. By the way, you can avoid that. I picked up this Tri-Arts clear gesso. I saw it on Amazon, and a lot of people were using it for Bible art journaling, and so I bought some. If you are having trouble with your gesso, you need to buy this. There is a Prima one, I'm not sure of the full name of it, but there's a Prima one also that they recommended. But this is Tri-Arts. Again, I'll put the link down below if you want to look into it. But it dries, it takes very little to use it. You just paint it on, it goes on very smoothly, and there's no grit at all. And so if you want to do some heavier coloring in your thinner papered journals, I would recommend looking into something like that. Again, it's not a cheap product. I don't know if you can buy it locally, so I don't know if you can use it a coupon. I know you can't get it at Michael's, if nothing else. But if you really want to do that kind of stuff in your thinner paper journals, I really recommend that gesso. It's so buttery smooth, but it just seals everything, works great, doesn't warp the paper very much. And so there, hey, 2 more products there you didn't even know you were getting. I don't care what you buy. I don't care what you use. I'm just sharing what I bought and why I bought it. I like the chalk inks. I'm going to stock the last 2 sets till they go on sale because I want them all. But if you're looking for an ink that won't bleed through on your planners, I highly, highly, highly recommend the Versamagic chalk inks. Yeah, they just worked really, really well. If you have any comments or questions or suggestions or any of that kind of stuff, please leave it in the comments below. Suggestions for videos, I will take those too, because I know everybody's hounding me about doing videos, and I'll be honest, I just don't have a lot to share right now. So if you have ideas that you would like to see me do, please leave those in the comments below. I do have a big video coming up in October. I'm a little excited about it. That will be for both YouTube and my Facebook peoples, and so you'll have to stay tuned for that. But anyways, Versa Magic, chalk inks for your thinner paper journals and planners. I hope this helped. Leave a comment, like the video, blah, blah, blah. See you in the next one. Bye, guys.